Chapter 20. The Psychology of Conception. The philosophers hold that to engender children is the most sacred and filial duty of man. Both man and woman are taught by them that the aim and aspiration of union is to enter into a conscious relationship with the incoming ego or soul. Their disciples seek so to prepare and govern themselves that they may be worthy to bring a soul manifesting in the loftiest and purest levels of consciousness into incarnation on earth, thereby giving life to a more highly evolved being than is possible for unthinking minds, impure hearts and unprepared bodies to attract. The philosopher, being in conscious relationship with the incoming ego, affords it great assistance as it passes through the denser states of matter, and encourages it to incarnate or enter the physical body prior to birth, for then for a time it cringes from assuming its dense physical vestment, since, as it were, it dies to the world from which it came. Through knowledge of nature's law and obedience to it, the philosopher has power to attract from the heavenly world those perfected beings who come as messengers to the race, purity of body, mind and soul, and the worship of God through the being beloved, ever bring into life on earth a soul beautified by its own divine source. And if two people, having physical characteristics which are ugly, worship God through the being beloved, with purity of mind and heart, the law of hereditary physical resemblance will be modified and the offspring will radiate that which is of the soul. The child which is a product of unpurified, ungoverned and unhallowed passion and desire become the vehicle of an ego of like character but more dominant in will, with inclinations equaling the sum of the passions and desires of the unthinking parents. Such are in truth the children of wrath and malediction, for whose salvation the philosophers, through reverent preparation of body, soul and spirit for parenthood, seek to bring into incarnation those beings who are chosen vessels of the divine love and wisdom. The thoughts and feelings of the parents at the moment of conception will determine the kind of soul they will attract, and the future destiny of the child. Pliny said, "It is believed that whatever is seen, heard, remembered, or thought of, at the time of conception is very potent in causing resemblance." In the Bible, we find the following example of the operation of this law. Jacob took him rods of green poplar, and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and peeled white streaks in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters in the watering troughs when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-streaked, speckled and spotted. Alexander the Great's conception took place in a temple called the House of Gods. At that time, his mother spiritually saw a divine being coming to her, inspiring her with the thought that her child would be a future world leader. Conception should be preceded by prayer and meditation, and by inward communion of the parents with the unborn soul they are to receive upon earth. There should be special eugenic temples for this purpose. The hearing of elevating music previous to, and even during, conception is very beneficial, also the visualization and beholding of the forms of ideal human beings. Best of all would be to have such an individual actually present, for then there will be a spiritual as well as a visual impression. Conception should not take place in a city, or in a mundane dwelling place, but in a eugenic sun temple, situated, as is an astronomical observatory, on the top of a lofty mountain, in an ethereal and ultraviolet atmosphere. When thus performed, in the presence of a eugenic educator, there would be no shame, passion or emotion attached to the act, but only a holy feeling of service to humanity and devotion to the unborn soul. Marriage was instituted by the angels as a sacrament, and the sacred rite of generation was performed under the supervision in great temples at certain times of the year when interplanetary lines of force were propitious for propagation. The rest of the time all lived together in the paradisiacal bliss of chaste companionship. Therefore parturition was painless, and sickness and sorrow were unknown. Conception should never take place at night, nor when either parent is not at the height of his or her physical, mental and spiritual vitality. Man, like woman, has a monthly magnetic rhythm, a periodic increase and decrease of vitality. Since this commences at birth, it occurs at different times for different people. However, the chaste association of the prospective parents during the period of preparation would result in the equalization of their magnetic rhythms, so that these would finally occur simultaneously. At a certain day of the lunar month, ordinarily directly after the menstrual period, their combined vitality should be at its point of maximum intensity, which is the proper time, in the monthly cycle, for conception. There is a similar increase and decrease of vitality every 24 hours, which fixes, for each pair of parents, a certain hour of the day best suited for conception. Usually, this would be in the late forenoon, when terrestrial, physiological and solar currents are at greatest intensity. Conception should take place in the ultraviolet sunshine, amidst the soothing green color of nature, and in an atmosphere of peace, harmony and holiness, if the best possible results are desired. There is also a certain zodiacal month in the solar cycle, best adapted for the conception of each child, according to its predetermined lifework, which may be astrologically computed. Thus, the month, day, and hour for conception may, and should, be decided upon beforehand. Conception should not take place without eugenic sanction, after at least a year's preparatory training. Krishna and Buddha were conceived in a forest. The newly married parents of Pythagoras were sent by the Delphic oracle to a distant country so that the predestined son might be conceived, formed and born far from the disturbing influence of his own land.